And welcome everyone to ADVMoto Live number 9, making tracks with the BDR. One of the best aspects of adventure is exploration. Sometimes it's finding a whole new culture in a faraway land, or sometimes it's just finding a new local back road. Either way, we're all out to find something new, and no one has been working harder at this in the US than the folks at Backcountry Discovery Routes, also known as BDR. Join us as we talk about the BDR, their mission, and what we can do to not only safely enjoy our time in the wilderness on our bikes, but also make our own tracks. Tonight, we're going to go right into it. All right, tonight's guests are core BDR members, hailing from Washington and New York states. They've been actively promoting safe, responsible adventure riding across the United States for 10 years now, and have a lot of experience to share, having collectively developed routes covering a good portion of the United States. Everyone, please welcome Paul Guillien, Thorne, and Tim James. How's it going, guys?
How you doing?
Very good. Is everyone unmuted? Paul's not. Okay, there's Paul.
Doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Yep.
No, it's awesome to have you guys. Thanks for taking the time to join. Tim, where are you at? You're where?
Right now, I'm in New Jersey at my office, but it's you're East Coast too, so it's 7:30, 8 o'clock now. So.
Yeah, right on. How are things going over there with all the stuff going on in the world right now?
Yeah, well, we were kind of in the hot spot for a while here. I lived like maybe 10 miles outside of New York City, so it was a little dicey for a while. But we seem to got it under control now. It's a lot better. There's states that are in far worse shape than we are now, so pretty.
Right on. That's great. Ina and Paul, how are you guys doing over there? Now they're in near Seattle in Washington State. How are you guys doing over there?
Pretty well. Seattle reacted early, and things haven't gotten too out of control here. Tour Tech, we're mostly working remote, so not even seeing folks. I'm working from my home office, which I'm at right now, and I think Ina for the BDR has mostly been doing the same. We haven't seen each other in the office very much.
No, all right, yeah. Well, I think that's the story for a lot of us right now. So can you guys very quickly just give us an idea of what you do at BDR, what your roles are, and how long you've been doing it?
I've been doing it about 10 years. I'm the president and co-founder. These days, Ina and Tim do a lot more of the work than I do, so I'll let them explain what they do.
Ina?
Oh, we've lost Ina's audio again.
The microphone. Tim, why don't you go first?
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm Tim James, and I'm a little newer to the BDR than Paul. I've been volunteering for probably about 5 years now. Got a little more active in the last few years, and I'm actually now serve on the board of directors. But my functional role is creative director, which is basically handling most of the the marketing efforts that we do, and I work really closely with Ina on that. It's we're basically on the phone probably at least every day, if not a couple of times a day. And that's in my, what I do for a living is the same thing, but doing it for BDR is a little different because it's a passion. So.
Right on. Well, the marketing side of things, whether you're doing something as a service, or a product or anything, is a bear. A lot of people don't really understand. Actually doing the work is half of it. Then you have to market it and get it out to people so that they know it exists and can appreciate the efforts that you're going through. So that is no joke. Did Ina get sorted out?
No.
She didn't get sorted out yet. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll try to roll on, and hopefully she will maybe get some local IT support in there, because we'd of course be able to love to hear from her.
Director of operations for us for BDR, and she's,
great, thank you.
She's our only full-time employee actually, and she also serves on the board of directors. I always say, this is what I've said for years, ever since I met her, she's actually the glue that holds this whole operation together. She basically, it's all things BDR.
Yeah. I think I heard audio when she got up and her chair moved, and I think I heard something, so she might be okay.
So Ina handles all the day-to-day operations. If someone calls the BDR, it rings to her cell phone. She's the primary person that answers the emails, and she pretty much runs all of the fundraising and all of the program that we do.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, you know, I mean, you guys have been doing this now for 10 years, you know, and you have covered 10 very different routes. We have a very short clip here that just kind of shows very, very briefly, and I believe in chronological order, you know, the routes that we have. So, yeah, you got it. You're good. You're good. Ina is online. Can you hear us, Ina?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear us? She might not be able to hear us. Okay. Anyway, let's just go ahead and roll on with the show here, and let's do the video clips. So let's go ahead and restart it. Yes, we can hear you.
I didn't hear them.
Okay. All right. So the first one was Washington. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah, Washington is where what started it all. And we had so much fun on that. Halfway through, we decided to do Utah next because it had such amazing terrain, and we'd all mountain biked and climbed and done various things there. And then Rob Watt joined. He was from Colorado, so we had to do that one next, hit all the high elevation and some of the most beautiful riding in the entire country, super alpine. And then we hit Arizona. We headed south. Ina, that was her first BDR, so she did it on a WR250. Then we did Idaho next. Bill Whitaker, one of our board members now, he led the charge and helped us get Idaho, which was the longest. New Mexico is next with Roger Pattison, really remote, still one of the best BDRs out of all of them. And then Nevada, that one was crazy long and rugged. We had 102 degrees at the beginning and snow at the end. Mid-Atlantic, yeah, we did a whole bunch of states there. That was our first East Coast project, which was really fantastic to have something for the folks, all of our friends out east. California, boy, that I think ended up being the hardest one that we've ever done, but also one of the most cinematic and beautiful, photogenic. It was the best film we had created to date when that came out. And then Tim James created the North BDR.
Tim James. I'm Tim James. Yeah, right on. That's cool. So did you guys have any, you know, like favorites out of all of those, you know, like any personal favorites?
I can take that one. So my first was the Utah BDR. I did it probably about 7 years ago. And that's what turned me on to the whole organization. And so I think, you know, my first night of camping on the Utah BDR in the Valley of the Gods, it just blew my mind, waking up to that view and just getting on your bike and riding for the next 7 days. And that's how it all started for me. And I've gone on to do, I think I've done at least 6 of them in total. And I've done parts of all the other ones. But yeah, I mean, Utah was my first impression. But my favorites, probably my all-time favorite section of is the Alpine Loop area in Colorado. I just absolutely love the elevation change, up and down, up and down. You're up at 15,000 feet, you're back down and back up. And so I love that. I love the challenge of that type of terrain.
Right on, that's good. Is Ina
You guys hear me now?
online?
Yay.
Yeah, that's good. Can you hear us?
Well, since I didn't get to do my intro, I did want to show everybody that at some point after the Arizona BDR, my first one, I wrote a story for ADVMoto, and Carl was nice enough to give me a cover. So thanks, Carl.
Well, you're a natural for the cover, and that was a great shot. I forgot who took that shot. Do you remember? Give some photog credit.
Yeah, John Beck. John Beck was our photographer.
John Beck. Notorious photographer in the adventure world.
Doesn't Paul have a cover too, or is it just you?
He does.
How long ago was that? Oh, that was when I went out there. I actually took that shot. That was when you guys flew us out to Washington for the rally over there.
Curtech rally a long time ago.
Yeah, boy, it's been a while. Well, that's cool. And then so Ina, we were talking about if there was any favorites that you have of the 10 routes.
I mean, I think I love the Southern California BDR the most.
Yeah.
Just for the majestic beauty and the scenery and the vistas. and the technical riding. You know, the technical riding was on a daily basis there. And I was not on the best bike at the time. It was an older bike. It didn't have any bells and whistles. And so I guess the most memorable ride was up the Coliseum mine. And it's in the film if you guys want to watch the California South. I really struggled up that hill, and my bike was overloaded in the back, and so my front kept coming up, and I was falling down so many times. And Quinn Cody was helping launch me, and he kept telling me, "Like, stand up right away," and then I would fall down again. I finally made it to the top, and you know, it was a very dramatic moment. But you know, to me, all the BDRs, they're sort of a hero's journey, where in the beginning you're doubting your abilities, you're not sure you can make it, you know, these are technical routes, and then you know, struggle through the middle of it, and you do your best to make it to the end, and then when you finally do it, it's such an incredible feeling of accomplishment. And so for me, like, BDRs are always kind of a hero's journey in one sense or the other, and Southern California was definitely heroic in its scenery and the technical riding.
Right on. That's cool. And Paul?
You know, the Washington was the first one, so that still is one of my favorites. Utah is just hard to beat. I was on the right bike that day with good suspension, and that week just had a blast. And just the landscapes you see in southern Utah are unlike anything else in the world, so that's probably my favorite.
Well, Utah is a rockin' beautiful
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
And I think they're, in general, I think we may have talked about this on the show before. In general, I think they're very motorsports friendly too. You know, there's a lot of places that you can get access to there, and not everyone starts waving angry fists at you. Well, that's cool. So 10 years, 10 rides, you know, and congratulations on the milestone. So, you know, going back a little bit, how did the BDR start? Like, what's the story of the history of the BDR? I mean, Paul, you said you're a co-founder, but what does that mean?
Yeah, co-founder of the nonprofit, but the BDR story actually goes back much further than me. Bob and Cheryl Greenstreet were the ones that originally created an off-highway cross-state route. It was in Oregon. They had plans to do more than that, but they actually got government funding. They created a route. They explored it all on their BMW GSs. They actually had in-ground markers marking the way. It was a really cool thing. But then some other organizations didn't like it and sued them, or sued the government, and they had to actually pull out the in-ground markers with the rest of the funding. And so it sort of lived in obscurity. Tom Myers from Touratech wrote it back in the 2000s. And then fast forward 2009, I started at Touratech. I had experience in the motorcycle industry, but not in really adventure motorcycling. And so Tom, just to bring me up to speed, decided we were going to go spend a week in the Oregon backcountry on the Touratech bikes that we had at the time. And being a marketing guy, I really wanted to get some content out of it. So I brought Helge Pedersen as the photographer, and then Sterling Noring as the film guy. So it was just the four of us. Tom was the leader. I agreed to cook and do dishes, and Sterling and Helge took photos and created video. And then we created a little YouTube short that we put up on the internet in 2009. And some guys from Seattle, a couple of local entrepreneurs, saw that, were inspired, wanted Washington to have a similar route. So they set out to create a Washington route, and they wanted to make a little film as well. So they called Sterling, and they decided that none of them wanted to pay for it. So they came to Touratech and asked Tom and I if we'd be willing to do it. And so Tom got out his checkbook and wrote a check, and I agreed to manage it.
Very cool.
And then boom, 10 years later, we've got 10 routes and 10,000 miles of BDR that's available for the community.
That is rocking. So, you know, what was the original mission of the BDR, and, you know, how's that evolved over time?
Well, we knew we wanted it to be free for the community. You know, that first route, we wanted the GPS tracks to just be available on the internet for free to anybody, that they could go follow in our footsteps on any sort of motorcycle. And it kind of evolved into by the community for the community. And sort of that really was the overarching spirit of the BDR from the very beginning, even before we were an organization. And then about 2011, we decided to make it an organization. It kind of operated out of Touratech. And in fact, it still sort of does in terms of being in the building, but it's a separate organization and has been so since 2011. So we wanted it to be community supported and have lots of companies involved, and for it to be, you know, by the community for the community.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that has stayed basically true over the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's expanded a lot from there, but it's still, everything's free. It's a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit, and yeah, nobody makes a penny off of it. And it's just as a resource for the community to make it easier for people to get out there and explore for a week. You know, we always saw there are people like Ina and her husband that, you know, quit their jobs and rode motorcycles to the southern tip of Argentina. And that was like adventure riding, but some of us that have day jobs that can't quite do that, this is like a week-long turnkey vacation that's pre-planned for you. So that was kind of I think the recipe that made it really stick. So we've tried to stay consistent with that.
Awesome. Very cool. So, you know, these routes and stuff that take all this work, you know, to sort of develop, you know, they're kind of constantly evolving, you know. I mean, you have all these random closures and stuff like that. You may have seasonal stuff or something like that. How do you guys stay on top of that? This is kind of getting more into the technical aspects of the routes.
I can take that one. I mean,
Sure.
you know, our routes use public roads only, so the routes mainly stay accessible and unchangeable for the most part. There are, of course, you know, sometimes roads may get washed out or they become unrideable due to weather or you know, other natural forces. So, or land managers might choose to close it for one reason or another. So we really rely on the information from riders who are on the BDRs, riding them, to let us know what's going on. If there's a road closure, they would email us and we would verify the information with the Forest Service or other land managers. And then we would post the updates or reroutes on our website. And now we also have Facebook group pages for each route. So we also share that information there. And then riders who join those groups, they can post their ride reports or, you know, let other riders know what's going on the route. Sometimes the Forest Service would email us and let us know to send a message to the community that there's, you know, road closure due to fire or road work or, you know, some other thing. So BDR is really sort of a link between the riding community and the land managers, and you know, we're the link of information for these two groups. You know, and
Wow. That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's really now becoming a full-time job for our volunteers, because now not only we create these routes, we now have 10 routes that we are actively managing. And so it's not like we create it and then we walk away, you know, they're sort of our children now, you know, well,
that's a lot of kids.
10 kids right now. And so, yeah, we're relying on our ambassadors and volunteers to keep abreast of what's going on, to, you know, look on Facebook groups, talk to riders, and let us know if any updates need to be posted. So definitely before you ride, make sure you check the BDR website and the Facebook groups to know the most up-to-date information. But it's a lot of work.
Well, that's cool. And it sounds like there's a very well-deserved shout out to the volunteers in the community.
Absolutely.
that all kind of like contribute to it, you know, and just make this thing real and doable for other people. That's one of the best things about the ADV community, is this kind of spirit that we have, and I don't see it in a lot of other places. And I've been in some other industries in my life, just like I'm sure all of you have, but it's just a very special thing that just kind of keeps us coming back for more, you know. But well, that's absolutely fantastic. So you got these cool routes. What is the secret for developing these routes? You know, I mean, you know, you have a fair amount of people out there privately, or clubs or something like that, you know, really try hard to, you know, sew together routes and stuff across all kinds of states. And I'm sure they must have some inkling of the kind of stuff that you go through. But I mean, how do you do it? How long does it take? And, you know, what kind of resources do you need to utilize, you know, to properly develop a route that can be put out to everyone?
I could speak to that. Since I just, you know, kind of led the development of our latest route, the NEBDR, the key to that was teamwork. And I think the way that the routes have been developed has evolved over the years. I think it changes. And I think this new formula that we have, which is to put together a team of local experts, is really the secret sauce. In the case of the NEBDR, which covers 7 states and nearly 1,400 miles, it'd be impossible for one person to kind of take that over and say, yeah, I know, I know intimately know those 7 states and every backcountry road and how to link them all up. So, when we embarked on that route, we recruited a group of individuals, one from each state that was somehow, somehow involved in the ADV community, whether they were part of a club or ran a tour company, and they had to have navigation skills. Number one, had to be adventure riders and had to be willing to donate their time, because this is all volunteer work. So that formula really worked, and we were able to put together a 1,400 mile route in just under 2 years.
Wow.
I can't speak to the other ones. I haven't developed any other routes, but this was definitely a solid 2-year process.
Wow. So are there any tools or habits that you guys would suggest, to make creating your own routes, easier?
So I can tell you how we do it, or how at least I handled it. So for us, that collaboration was key, right? For us, so that, we were not only just out there riding the routes and brainstorming when we're out on the trail, but we were over the winter when we couldn't ride, we were leveraging every collaboration tool that we could to WebEx, and we'd share screens and look at maps and just brainstorm for hours. But the key, I can tell you how we started the process, and for a route that large, 7 states, 1,400 miles, where do you even begin, right? It's kind of daunting. So I felt the first way to do that, well, let's figure out the general path of travel that we want to. We know we're going to go through 7 states. Let's figure out an entry point, an exit point for each state. Let's also define the areas that are must visits, or that could be a national forest, a state forest, it could be a mountain range, it could be a point of interest. And then once you define all those variables, you can then hone in on what's the best way to travel and get to those. And the other important thing is to run these routes through communities that could use the economic boost, because that's part of our mission, which we can probably touch on later. That was kind of the key to doing it, and it kind of narrows it down. And as far as tricks, getting out on the trail, taking as many notes as you possibly can. I was taking notes in my phone. We all were recording notes. We were writing notes, ripping pages out of the Delorme Gazetteer maps and just carrying those so that you could get a wider look at the area.
Wow.
The GPSs are such a tiny screen, so it's a little bit hard to get a perspective when you're mapping just on a GPS.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the good tricks, actually, this is my girlfriend taught me this one. She said, if you're going to go scout an area, she said, define the area. And create a loop out of it so that you can find one way up and then one way down, and then you're really kind of getting as much exposure to that area and alternatives. And we kind of use that, and it was a really, really useful way to do it. So just doing it in giant loops. So.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's cool, but it must be super tiring and very time consuming.
Yeah, well, it definitely was. It was well worth it, though, because this particular route is, you're seeing it right now, actually, in the background there. It's a fantastic route.
Yeah, it is amazing to be able to actually show people these routes through different parts of the country, because we get a large country and very diverse. So, one thing that I've always loved about BDR, and also ADVMoto shares this, is it's actually important to get people off of interstates and really thinking more about this country, understanding this country not just as it exists in the big cities or in the say more urban areas or something like that, which a lot of people will be able to identify with, but actually there are slices of American history and real gems that you can find out in the yonder hills of America, and by us going out there, even as travelers, it doesn't have to be far, it doesn't even have to be out of your state, but even if you just visit a small town, you have an impact on that town. And one of the things I love about the BDR program is it's actually had a measurable impact. Can you guys talk about that?
I can touch on that. Yeah, so the economic impact that the BDRs bring to these states and to businesses along the routes wasn't in our original mission. It was sort of a byproduct of this organization's work. And so in 2017, we did an economic study to figure out, how much money is being spent by our riders in these states. And so we commissioned this economic study and with the two professors from a university in Atlanta. And so what we found is that in 2017, and at that time we had 7 routes, $17.3 million was spent by out-of-state riders. So that's not even counting that the riders who are riding in their own state. So out-of-state riders spent $17.3 million in 7 BDR states. And so it's really incredible, as a community of riders and also businesses that support the BDR, we should all be proud about this economic impact that we bring into these little towns. It's the hotels that we stay at, the restaurants we go to, gas stations we fill up. And then in return, though, the businesses and the people who live in the small communities, they become the advocates for these roads being open, because their livelihood depends on BDR riders coming into these towns and doing business there. So it's just an amazing relationship that has developed without us really having a goal of doing that. But we were also lucky to get a couple states who understand the economic impact on tourism. So we were able to get tourism grants from a few states to support the development of routes in the BDRs. And it's really our hope that, in the future, state people who are responsible for state tourism will see the value in the BDRs coming through their state.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that we need to have more programs like that. Obviously you have the financial economic sort of benefits of programs like this, but then also you have just the personal interrelationship, actually sort of bringing yourself into a place where you can understand a wider cross section of this country, and what the United States is made of. In our daily routines, it's very easy for us just to kind of get myopic and focused on what we do every day and what's in our bowl in front of us. And I think that there's a very real value in that, in becoming a better person in general too. But, one weird thing I've had about sort of making routes is, like when I was in the Himalayas, there were some places that I saw that I didn't, I didn't want to share it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, this place is so nice and it's untouched and it's beautiful. And actually some of those places literally no foreigner had really ever seen before, and there were some places where I was just like, man, like how do you balance that? I don't want to say, I don't know if it's a moral or if it's an ethical dilemma between saying, you know what, like this place is beautiful just as it is. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, why be greedy and, share it, but then you can also understand the risks of it. You know what I mean? What do you guys think about that?
For sure, Tim did not share some of the tracks on the Northeast BDR.
I will absolutely fess up to that. There is definitely some secrets that we didn't give away, and not just so much to keep it for myself and for my riding buddies. It's more so that some of the places are pretty, might be more, delicate and let's just say that, and running, thousands of riders a year through a certain area may not be the best for that area. So you had to make decisions like that along the way, and I'm sure that happened on all the routes.
Yeah, and I would just add that some of the best roads are the roads that are getting shut down because the Forest Service and land managers have less money to maintain roads, and so the ones they're decommissioning are the small roads that hardly anyone uses. So by us making that a part of the BDR, we're actually protecting and keeping open some of these gems that would get gated and would permanently go away. Every year when they reprint maps, there's fewer and fewer roads. So it's actually in some ways the opposite of what you might think. We're actually protecting, and that's become a big part of our mission and our drive and what keeps us all volunteering big chunks of our time is to keep some of these amazing roads open, because there are roads that would be closed if the BDR hadn't got to them. So we're trying to use the BDR as a mechanism for protecting access and preserving some of these amazing roads. Yeah.
Wow, that's something that I hadn't thought about. And I guess to a certain extent, the roads themselves limit the amount of traffic that you're likely to get through there. You know what I mean?
Sometimes there's almost no purpose to the roads. They're just, high elevation, low usage. They're covered by snow most of the year. And so, but if it has a culvert that gets washed out, it has to be repaired, and that takes money and man hours. And so they just decommission the road. We've had roads on the Washington BDR that got decommissioned because they were expensive to maintain, and so we've fought hard to try and get those roads back open. And the land managers have a duty to provide recreational opportunities. That's part of their charter. They sell timber, they manage the resources, but they also provide recreational opportunities. And so if we can demonstrate that there's a whole segment of the motorcycle industry that uses this certain road, then they're happy to keep it open for us.
Oh, that's actually fantastic, and that's something that I think might not necessarily be obvious to a lot of people, right? So, as we ride these roads, whether we're following BDR tracks or if we're kind of making our own tracks, what kind of tips and guidelines do you guys have for keeping locals happy and making sure that we keep that access? And what are some resources people can use to stay on top of access issues? They may not necessarily be BDR kind of related directly.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that we should really point out at this point is that we developed an awareness program called Ride Respectfully this past year with the NEBDR, which we promote on the website and on social. We have a page on the website just about it, and it's we have 12 different 12 different points that we cover on it. I won't go through all of them, but they're pretty just common sense things. We go through a lot of small communities and a lot of dirt roads that you may think you're out in the middle of nowhere, but someone has a house on that road, and when you're ripping by, it makes a difference, and you're kicking up dust. So one of the first points on Ride Respectfully is slow down when going through homes. Kind of get off the throttle and don't kick up too much dust. Try not to, at least, and don't rip up the trails unnecessarily. One of the big things is to wave. You would be surprised how you can kind of de-escalate a situation by being friendly and waving, and not arguing and not immediately kind of bumping heads with the local. We've had it happen many times. Just had it happen last weekend when we're out looking at some new tracks. So you just have to go at it from a friendly perspective and don't get aggressive, because that never ends well. But there's a couple other points. Don't group in front of houses. That's one of the big ones we talk about. A lot of times when you do, like for instance, the Class 4 roads up in Vermont, they're super gnarly. They're in the middle of nowhere. But at the end of them, a lot of times there's a group of houses or a house that's right there. And you come through that track and you just want to stop and drink some Gatorade or, have a Red Bull, whatever it is, and high five with your buddies, but you're in front of somebody's house. So try not to regroup in front of people's homes. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, keeping the locals happy is so important to our mission, and being friendly, because those are the ones who can complain and contribute to getting access shut down for us.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot either, right?
It's just common sense, Carl. I mean, it's really just common sense. Just go through, when you ride through a BDR and you go through a group of homes, pretend that home is yours. Pretend that's your weekend house up in the country. And how would you ride that road if that was your cabin right there? So I think if you look at it from that perspective, it may give you some awareness.
Yeah, right on. Well, we have some. We have a really fast question from the audience here, and that is, are there any plans for future routes in the works?
You can take that one. Yeah. We try to keep it secret,
but
we were planning on filming the Wyoming BDR. It is pretty much ready to be filmed and ridden by the group. However, we decided to postpone the filming of that expedition just out of respect for local communities and everything that's going on with COVID. So now we moved it 1 year up. So the Wyoming BDR planned release now is 2022, beginning of 2022. But you know, we have other routes in the works. The Northern California BDR, there's the Southeast BDR, Montana, and a couple others. So the route development committee and all the ambassadors that are involved are hard at work. But the Wyoming will be next.
Awesome. Lots of things have been put on hold, I think, because of political and this COVID thing. It's just been a very strange time for us as a country. We have a question from Quattro. What is the progress? That's all one word. What is the progress of the Southeast route?
So, given that we just delivered an East Coast route, that's probably not the next route Wyoming will be the next one, but it might be a couple of years till we get back down south or back east. But the plan is to have something that goes from wherever we start at the bottom of the country and taking it all the way up to the Canadian border. So we've got 2/3 of that done right now. Wow,
that's a lot of bouncing around. So the question is now that there's some presence and coverage on the East Coast, what are we looking at in terms of what are the differences between developing routes in the East and the West that you guys have experienced?
Well, I've never developed a route out west. I've definitely developed some rides to get out there with my friends who have plotted routes out there, and I can tell you flat out that it's a little more complicated to create a route on the East for obvious reasons. You're an East Coast guy, right? I mean, there's just it's so much more dense from a population standpoint. There's so few dirt roads and unpaved roads, and the other kicker is that when you do find dirt roads, a lot of times they don't run in the right direction. They don't run north to south or south to north, which is typically historically how we've developed BDR, run from south to north. So it winds up, when you link these all together, if you put up any BDR tracks right now on a map, you'd be like, what the heck were they doing? They bounce this way, that way, this way, and so it's difficult. It's definitely there's a lot of challenges, and I think you mentioned earlier about Utah being a motorsports friendly state, right? Well, a lot of New England and northeastern New England is not that way. They don't have the same mindset as a town in Utah or Colorado that's used to side by sides rolling into the local restaurant and grabbing lunch. It's definitely a different mindset here.
Awesome. Now we have another question from our audience. They're on it today. Jim Cummins says, if someone wanted to suggest a new route, what would you like to see as part of that presentation?
That's a Paul question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we rely on locals to help us, figure out these routes. So we're always in search of local knowledge. If you have good knowledge in a state that does not yet have a BDR, let us know what you're thinking. And typically, it's a phone call, or they'll send us an email to routeinfo@ridebdr. And we sort of start the relationship. A lot of people we've met are folks that come to our fundraiser ride each year, and that's how we've sort of built connections with the right people. And oftentimes that is determined the order, in which we create the routes, is how strong a connections we have with people that are have the knowledge, that are interested in helping out, they can commit the time, and that oftentimes slides it up the priority list for us. So we've almost all of the routes that we've created were done in a partnership with locals. Sometimes it's one or two. Tim had, I think, a new record with 6 or 7 people that helped out on the Northeast BDR. But just reach out to us. Let us know the area you have expertise in. We will involve our criteria. Sometimes people have ideas and they're too technical, or they're not quite in the spirit of the BDR. And so sometimes there's a little back and forth on what we're really looking for. But oftentimes those can be worked out, and some of our best routes and biggest contributors were people that came to us with some ideas, and between the BDR team and them, we were able to come up with some really good routes.
Right on. And And wow, there's so many questions tonight. That's cool. One is, and I was actually thinking about this myself. Is there some kind of like mastermind wizard plan to connect all these routes and make one like unified crazy BDR loop of the United States or something like that?
No, absolutely not. What we do is really simple. There's, for the last 10 years, we've fought some forces that were trying to get us to change our recipe. What we do north to south, primarily on public lands or easements, we follow the mountain ranges. That's how we get it done. And so our objective is to make the best possible route that goes from one border to the other border of a state or a region. Out east, we group together the states. And so we do not prioritize connectability to other routes. We try to just deliver the best border-to-border route that we can. In some cases, we have little connectors that you can download the GPS tracks to help you get from one to the other. But the cool thing is you have a whole menu of routes. If you go to the Ride BDR website, you can see all of them. And you can quite easily see now there's enough of them that you can figure out which ones to string together. You can go from Canada to Mexico a couple of different ways. You can go up through one set of routes, come down through another set of routes. So we love that the community gets creative and connects them together. And we don't care if you ride BDR up and then the Transamerica Trail over. It's all good, but we're not going to spend time trying to connect a bunch or to create a route that's less good than it could be because we're trying to get it to connect to something else. So that's the bottom line on that.
Awesome. And we got another zinger from Mark. How about, and I was actually also thinking about this, how about anything in our neighbors, Mexico and Canada, east to west in Canada? I think they already have a Trans-Canada, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but we certainly are running out of states and regions in the U.S. to do routes. So we fully expect that we will be going beyond the U.S. borders, keeping up this basic formula of going across states or regions or provinces or countries. In some cases, it would be a whole country, and we look forward to doing that. And it's closer than we think.
Awesome. And man, the questions just keep firing. I hope you guys are doing all right. We've got also someone really wants to know, and you're talking about the states. What's going on with Oregon? What's going on with Oregon? It's like hitting all the states around Oregon.
I don't think I've ever been at a forum or event where that question was not asked.
You want to answer it, Paul?
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in the works.
I will say that it has not gone unnoticed with the BDR team on how much demand there is for an updated Oregon route.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's see here. Yeah. Sorry. Is this? I'm getting some weird thing here.
There you
It's
are.
saying. Okay. Is it back?
We're back.
Okay. That was. No. Totally a technical thing. We seem to be rife with it. Anyway, and then let's see. We have also a couple of people have asked this, and that is, how can folks volunteer help the BDR mission? I think the last one that was asked was from Joseph Anderson. How can we help? How can everyone just kind of pitch in?
I can answer that. I mean, the number one thing you can do is donate to the BDR, whether it's $1 or $500 or whatever you can. Donations is how this volunteer nonprofit survives and how we're able to keep creating these routes and providing resources for the community. We do have an ambassadors program, so you can go to ridebdr.com/ambassadors and see what the requirements to joining as ambassador are. I do have to note, everybody wants to come and be in the movie or scout, but there's not that many opportunities to actually, go do scout or ride. But ambassadors who really, beyond just their words, were committed to spending time and resources on helping the BDR. They're the ones that are really feeling involved and doing great things and helping scouts. So I would say, help donate, participate in other fundraising opportunities. Like right now we have the KTM sweepstakes drawing going on. You can win an amazing KTM 790 Adventure R. That helps our bottom line. Participate in the holiday online auction we do every December. Donate, become an annual supporter. We have an annual supporter program where people can join, and for donation you get all these perks from over 40 adventure brands in the industry. And then, if you want to contribute beyond that, and if you live in a state where we have the routes, we are always looking for volunteers who can go and check out the road closures or find a workaround for us. So you can email routeinfo@ridebdr.com or info@ridebdr.com and talk to us. But like I said, there's not that many opportunities to go scouting, but there's opportunities to help host film premieres or go do presentations at dealerships on behalf of the BDR. Or, in the past 2 years, we have been partnering with the international motorcycle shows and hosting the Adventure Out space. So come and volunteer for the weekend and do talks and talk about the BDR with the attendees of the show. So there's plenty of opportunities if you really are willing to do the work.
Yeah, someone here also is reminded, is the 790 program still going on now?
Yeah, it's still going, and we will do a drawing for the winner on July 31st. So there's over $10,000 in upgrades that are part of this package, and we have a couple new surprises coming up in the next few weeks. But the sweepstakes is really, because we're not doing a route film in the next year, the proceeds from the sweepstakes is really what's helping us weather the storm this year. So we appreciate all the support we can get from the community on that.
If I can just add to, another way that people can volunteer and help, and what Paul always says, and it's kind of our mantra, is that BDRs are by the community for the community. Since we started these individual Facebook pages, they've gotten a lot of traction, and a lot of people have been joining them. I think we already have close to 2,000 on the NEBDR site, or page, I should say. And there's some rising stars on there. And when I say rising stars, I say people that are contributing in a very positive way and going out there and reporting when something's happening on the trail, or advising others. I just did this, here's some helpful tips for riding this section, or here's where you can camp. And that's where you can really give back to the community. And that venue, and that crowdsourcing is really what's going to make it successful. So, we definitely have some rising stars on all of them, and you see people who are consistently doing that, and that's what we hope that kind of everybody gravitates to, and in a very positive way contributes to those pages.
Yeah, we always say that we're a volunteer-powered organization, and we need volunteers more than ever, especially with those Facebook pages. It's a great opportunity to share information and to have the latest information. But Ina, Tim, and Paul can't be there answering questions about whether a gate's open or closed, or whether it rained and that sort of thing. But we've got some great people in the community that are helping us, and that is really instrumental for having answers to the questions that people have.
Yeah, just on the NEBDR so far this year, which has only really technically been open since the beginning of June, right? For the most part, as far as access to most of the roads, we've probably had 4 reroutes due to closures or culverts that were washed out. And we got that information from the community, and we vet the information, and we put a map up on the website of a go around, and it's all, this is information that we kind of rely on the community to do, because we can't have boots on the ground. I can't be riding the 1,400-mile route every weekend to scout this out. So we kind of rely on this crowdsourcing. So big shout out to everyone who's been really helping with all the routes. Thank you so much for all that you do, and it doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, I think I will raise a bottle to all the volunteers that go out on the route. Cheers to everyone that helps, not just the BDR, but all of the good people that try to carry the spirit of adventure with us into the public and everywhere we go. Yeah, absolutely. None of this would be possible. ADVMoto, BDR, any of the parts and supplies and the bikes and all that stuff would be possible unless it was straight up, for the people that were passionate about it. and they want to make a difference, and they want to help us make a difference too, and we help each other. That's awesome stuff. All right, let's see here. All right, looks like we're good on questions. Last question before we roll out. I know it's been a little while. I know you guys are chock full of things to do, but any words of encouragement or wisdom before we go? That's our canned question. We love to field that and see what folks say. Tim, you want to kick off?
Yeah, absolutely. So words of wisdom, I would say stop dreaming about going out and having an adventure and find your adventure on a BDR. I mean, it's we the organization and the community have put together these amazing assets for you to utilize on the website and plan your trip. So it's not that hard to do, and I realized that the first time I did a BDR back in 2013, and what made me want to give back to the community. So yeah, for sure. Don't stop thinking about it, and absolutely get out on a BDR. Go ride BDR.
Oh, awesome. Ina?
I mean, BDRs are so incredible. I always say we used to hearing people doing adventure motorcycle travel, and you always think about faraway countries taking 6 months of work. But really what BDR does is make it so accessible to anybody who wants to go and ride in the backcountry for 7 days to go and do that. So, riding your motorcycle in the backcountry, most beautiful places really in the world and in this country that you've never seen, forgetting about your daily worries and spending time with friends. It is, once you experience that, there's no going back. You're hooked. You want to do more BDRs in the future. Yeah. What I say is, especially if you're new to BDR, make sure you have the right bike and the right gear. Take an off-road course and make sure you know how to ride with a fully loaded bike on technical terrain. Take do a few practice weekend rides with overnight, camping and all your gear packed. And then make sure you check the planning resources that are available on the website, and then just go and ride the BDR. And I guarantee you're going to be hooked, and you would want to do it over and over again. In fact, we have fans. The first person who joined BDR as a lifetime supporter when we launched that program, I think Carl.
Sam Carl.
Sam Carl, from Seattle. So he and his buddies, they do a BDR trip every year, and that's their vacation. They budget. It doesn't cost that much money. All you need is basically a new set of tires and some gear, and they do a BDR vacation every year. And it's amazing. It's cheap, and you get to explore some of the parts of the country that you would never find yourself unless you were riding a BDR.
Awesome. Paul, you want to wrap this up?
Yep. I think Ina hit the nail on the head that the BDR riding is a team sport, and so it's best enjoyed with a group of people. That's part of the fun. It's a lot more fun to sit around the campfire and tell each other lies with a group than it is by yourself. That's kind of the key thing. I just have a couple of quick ones. I think always bring as much water as you can for each section. You never finish with too much water. It's something that's easy to underestimate, and being hydrated is really important. A couple sayings I've developed over the year. One of them is never trust desert mud. If you're doing routes out west, when you see a wet spot, it's never good. And I come from Washington. We have a lot of mud. I know a lot of things about mud, but the desert mud, it just cakes on the tires. It's super slippery. It can really ruin your ride. And the other one is to respect the rut. Some of the worst accidents or crashes I've been involved in or seen were people getting stuck in ruts. You're riding with a group, you're following too close, the dust kind of hides the ruts. So when you see ruts, really slow down and stay in control, and don't mess with the ruts, because they will take you down.
Paul, what about your 5 p.m. rule? Come on.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a lot of rules. Yeah, nothing good ever happens after 5 p.m. And a case in point, last time I rode a motorcycle, which is not very often, but Ina and I and the Tour Tech guys were out riding. Sure enough, I wadded myself up on the brand new 790 that didn't have a scratch, going over a cattle guard that was wet, and trying to keep up with Ina, of course. And sure enough, it was after 5, man. That's always the way.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, it was super great having you guys here. Thanks for all of your thoughts, all your experiences on this, and as things progress, we can always try to stay in touch, and love to have you guys back on again sometime.
Carl, I want to quickly say thanks to ADVMoto magazine. You guys have supported the BDR since the very beginning. There's no magazine that's done more for the BDR than you guys. You guys have allowed us to submit stories. You have run free advertising for us when we needed it. And you guys, I think, have had as big an impact on the BDR as anyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, you guys are certainly very welcome, and I think we can speak for the organization, and also a lot of writers, and some of them who are on here tonight. This is a team thing. It's not just us and you; it's all of us together, making this happen, supporting each other, so that we can support other people to make their dreams come true. And at the bottom of it, I think that's what's important. Yeah, awesome. Well, all right, guys. I'll check you guys in a little bit, but we will be back online with you soon. So, much thanks to Paul, Ina, and Tim for taking the time to share, like I said, these thoughts and experience with us. If you're into exploring the American backcountry, check out ridebdr.com. It is highly recommended. The tracks are free, and there's a host of other resources on there to make sure you have a fun and safe journey. So, in summary, exploring the world doesn't always mean traveling to far off distant lands. Sometimes the best places we can explore are closer than we think, and a healthy stepping stone to a bigger journey and better versions of ourselves. For some, it's an inescapable thirst that must be quenched, and you know it when you feel it. To paraphrase Mark Twain, there are times in every rightly constructed person's life when they have a raging desire to go somewhere and dig for hidden treasure. So, whether you're following someone's tracks or to someplace new or making your own, the promise of adventure and discovery holds many untold rewards. We are more fortunate than ever to have so much support in making these dreams happen for more and more people every day. May this happiness be yours through some struggle. So, thanks very much again. Join us next week with Bree Poland, the big kahuna at Royal Enfield North America. She will join us as we talk about the brand's recent success and the new Himalayan model, which will be here soon. Also a suitable bike for BDRs, no problem. We'll also be joined by Jack Grove, a young bloke in his early 20s who set out on a journey around the world from England and is now, I believe, stuck in Peru. He'll be joining us as well. And as always, your support means a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Visit adventuremotorcycle.com for more ADV. And until next time, ride safe. Have fun.